Every year on 2 days, every year I set 2 days to remember my mother. I usually set aside her birthday and I usually set aside her death day. Mm, I usually talk to her during that time. I usually remember her. But today it will be a bit different. On this 32nd, is it 25 plus 7? Uh, 25 plus 7, that is 32. On this 32nd anniversary of her death, I wanted today to have it different. Uh, I, I wanted to have it different, whereby I don't talk to my mother, but I want to talk about my mother. By extension, my parents, and by more extension, my family. Bear with me the long story. Bear with me the spilling of the family beans. From the time my father died, I undertook to tell the truth. The reason being that whenever we sat as a family, when we made decisions, and we made many decisions, I can't count them, but I think majority of them succeeded and very few failed. Whenever we made decision, whenever it failed to work out, I would usually be the person in many times who would be blamed. Even in cases where I choose that we go this way and majority go that way. When the results came, I would be blamed for being the one who insisted on what came to be wrong. For example, if I said we go left and majority or decision is decided that we go right, then the results come out that if we would have gone left, we would have been successful. You'd find that everybody turns to me, and instead of saying that actually what you are saying as the minority was right and we were wrong, no, they would change their minds without blinking an eye and saying that it is me who said that we go to right and not, and they were saying we go to left. And then they say, you see, if we would have followed what we were saying left and not followed what James said right, we would have been okay. Whenever things go according to what I insisted, siblings would insist that it was a collective decision. For example, if the whole family, if the family was saying let's go to the right, and I said to the left, and I insisted, and there are those things I think you are aware. There are some things, even when the majority are saying uh, differently from you, you insist and push until they decide according to what you are saying. When things come out that what you insisted was right, tell them, you see, you people are saying this and I alone was saying this within the confine of the family, where there is no outsider. You tell them, you see, you are insisting that we say this or we do this and we do that. But I was insisting, you see, had I not over insisted until you had no way out and followed what I said, you would have been wrong. In such cases, you find them telling me that whatever the outcome that came was a collective decision. Yeah, a place where I single-handedly push them to do this and it comes out to be right. They say I was single-handed. No, it was not single-handed, but it was a collective. Of course, it is a collective because whatever you decide at the end and come out publicly, it is. But anything, whether I'm for it or against it, should anything not work well, the family has always insisted that it is me who was wrong. The reason why they do that is that I follow the Swahili proverb which says, kubali yaishe, kubali yaishe. I have changed my mind and I have come to realize that I am to blame. If from the word go, I would have been making noise the way I'm making now, I'm sure then the CV that I have for being blamed, it comes out that everything good, over 90% have been against it. And everything bad, over 90% it has been me, and me alone. If I would have started making noise earlier than now, maybe things would be different. Now, let me start talking about my mother's death. Uh, a few weeks or months before mother died, there were two medical stories. There were two medical stories. There was Makohatondo Huatenge had arrived at home from Mombasa and told me that my mother was unwell. Makohatondo's Roketondo and Lando were brothers, were step brothers, both sons of Huatenge. So Makohatondo came from Mombasa and told me that my mother was unwell. When I insisted on more information, he sounded surprised. He did not know that he had not anticipated that I would cross-examine him, but he reassured me that my mother was not feeling well, but people from her church were there praying, attending to her, whatever, doing everything, so you should not have any reason to worry. My youngest brother had a long-standing medical situation. Finally, a solution was found. That is the second case now. The first medical case was about my mother or our mother, and the second case was about my youngest brother who had a long-standing medical situation. Finally, the situation was found, and he was to go to Memorial Hospital for a minor surgery. I hope you know where, whenever you go to the hospital, you are treated and the doctors don't seem to know what you are suffering from. But later on, they discovered that the problem, and they decided that he was referred to Forces Memorial Hospital for a minor surgery. Those are the two medical reports I had uh, a month or so before my mother died. I remember the day I was informed about my mother's death like yesterday. It was planting season, and in planting season, people, we make simple meals like githeri. We make githeri. Now we had prepared githeri for the planters, and whatever githeri that remained, I offered myself to go to the trading center for carrots, waru, cabbage, etc. for a good githeri. You know, githeri mixed with those things is better than the one which is just taken without those things. I took one of the two bicycles that were in the home and headed towards the trading center. I headed towards the trading center. Now, as I was heading towards the trading center, along the way, I got some 4 or 5 people who are also headed towards the trading center. The trading center is 2.5 kilometers from home. So we went and we were talking. Then we met my brother Sammy, the youngest brother, who is a cop and who was going to, he was, he had already been given an appointment to go to First Memorial Hospital for the minor surgery. What I know about my brother, he only knows English and Swahili. No other language is he He doesn't know of any other language. And if you look at him and you look at my cousin, whose father is my uncle, my maternal uncle, you could think they are twins. They look alike like twins. So when we had greetings, me and my brother and others, we started talking. Me, I knew that my brother, because I noticed he had a bag with clothing inside. So to me, the first thing that came to my mind is that he's going to be admitted at the first memorial, and that is why he had carried a few clothings. So when we talked, the other five people continued. Me, I stood there with the bicycle, and then that is when my brother told me that he had received information from Mombasa. Our last born is called Modoni, but we nicknamed her long time ago as Pardoni, like pardon. So I started making jokes. Somebody who is sick, it is always good to introduce light topics. It is always good to introduce light topics. So I started, oh, Pardoni is doing, and he just gave me a terse statement, made me a terse statement, said, Mom has died. Without even introduction, without even going beating about the bush, I said it is a terse statement. Just said, Mom is dead. I got confused. I didn't know what to say. I looked left and right. It's like somebody had told me a secret that I wanted to make sure no other person has heard. Then I looked at his bag. I told him, let me carry your bag on the bicycle. He gave me the bag on the bicycle. For any person, I would have just turned round from there and went home with him. But if you have not lost a close relative, you may not understand me. But I told him, let me carry your bag for you. I placed it on the bicycle. And then we parted ways. He went home. Me, I went to the trading center. I caught up with the four other people whom we were talking with. And then one of them was telling the other that if you are working in a place, be like JI-TENGE. JI-TENGE was so good at his place of work. You have seen a colleague of his has come to visit him. My brother looks like a Kikuyu or a Taita. So people are thinking that it was a police officer who had come to my rural home to see me after I had been sacked. So we started whatever topics we had, we continued with whatever we were saying until we reached the shopping center. At the shopping center, I want to remind my viewer that I had forgotten that my mother had died. I had forgotten that my mother had died. So I went to the shopping center, bought those things which were required, carrots, cabbage, Irish potato, and so on. Then you see, they were placed in a container, and I was supposed to now place the container on the bicycle. And when I was placing it on the bicycle, I saw a bag. I wondered how the bag found itself on the bicycle. I wondered how the bag found itself on the bicycle. So I started asking, but this bag looks like my brother's bag. I said, yeah, it's my brother's bag. You mean I've met my brother? Said, I started wondering, I met my brother. Oh, I met him near the Adventist church. And what did he tell me? Oh, he told me that our mother has died. That is when I started crying. I think it was 10 minutes after I talked to my brother that I realized that my mother is dead. When I started crying, uh, Mulanda Tondo, the stepbrother to Makoha Tondo, came and found me crying. And he was shocked because he was standing somewhere. He was on leave. He was a police officer. He died while still in the police service. He came and yeah, he saw me just packing things and then suddenly starting crying. He was shocked. So he came to me and asked me, What is this that has just come to your mind that you have started crying? I told him, reports coming from Mombasa is that my mother may have died. Reports reaching me from Mombasa is that my mother may have died. Then he held me by the head, prayed to God, and said that we should we should pray to God that that is a false alarm. I said amen, and then we went back home. Reaching home, we had a discussion, the three of us, my stepmother, my brother, and myself. We had a discussion of what do we do. We decided that there and then we should go to Kaburengu, where we had family business, where my father used to stay for long. We should go there and inform my father that our mother, inform our father that our mother was dead. So we left our stepmother there, went to Kaburengu, stayed there for some time. We didn't find our father. It reached around 9 p.m. that my brother insisted on going to Mombasa to be present, to be present. And then I asked him if he had a fare that I should also accompany him. He said that he only had the fare for himself and nothing more. So we went to Ebuye, he boarded a night bus, and I went home. I arrived at home. I arrived home somewhere around midnight. Reaching home at midnight, I found my father's car present, but all lights were off. So I went to sleep. Did I say I went to sleep? Well, I went and lied on bed until morning. Sleep couldn't come up. Next morning, I talked. Next morning, I talked about. I went and met my father, and I talked about a lot of things without mentioning that my mother was dead. I could not bring myself to telling my father that my mother is dead. So my father told me, no, stop beating about the bush. What is this that we are hearing? Then I told him that mom is dead. Just saying mom is dead, I started crying. Started crying. And then my father asked me, and what do you want me to do? That is the exact word he said, but you know it in vernacular. I told my father that if only I could get the fare to Mombasa, because we don't even know whether she's been buried or not yet or whatever. I just want to go to Mombasa and certify whether she's been buried or not. Then my father left, went to the bedroom to get him. As he had gone to his bedroom to get my fare to Mombasa, people started streaming in. I can tell you that uh, information about death in Luhyaland travels faster than light. People started coming. When they came to the sitting room, uh, my father, that is when my father came from the bedroom and gave me the transport from home to Mombasa. That is when he gave me fare from home to Mombasa. People came in, and you see some things are hard to direct a question to somebody. There are some questions that are hard to direct questions to people. There is a step brother of my father called Patrick Lubisia Huatenge. Lubisia and Lando were both sons of Huatenge, but they were step brothers to each other. They are step brothers to each other, and people started questioning him. Actually, he's the one who resembles my father so much than even his own biological brother. I mean, Lubisia and Lando resembled each other more than Lando resembled his own brother and Lubisia his own brother. These are two step brothers who resembled each other a lot. So people who are coming were directing questions to Lubisia. Has he been buried? Has she been buried? Lubisia would answer, we do not know. We have just received information that she's dead. We do not know whether she's buried or not. Then people started asking, now suppose she has not been buried and she has kids here. Don't you think it is better for her to be buried in this homestead? And Lubisia just said, that is not for me to answer. Those questions were being asked. Those questions were being asked in the presence of my father. There is a diplomatic way of lawyers doing things. They ask his brother, whereas in reality they are asking. It is only Patrick Lubisia who said, it is only Patrick Lubisia who said that he does not know. My father never interjected, my father never did anything, and it was being talked in vernacular. So from there, seeing that I've gotten my fare, I went to the kitchen and asked to have a cup of tea as I leave for the funeral. As tea was being prepared, my father sent a message to me that I should be told that he's going to his business place, and so if I could hasten up, he would give me a lift to the trading center. As I said, the trading center is about 2.5 kilometers away. I left the tea without being taking it. Not that I didn't have the appetite, but we left, and by the time we arrived, at the trading center, my father had given me a telephone number in Nairobi, where he said, because at that time we did not know whether mom had been buried or not, and so he told me, when you reach in Mombasa, call this number. I'll be waiting, and then update me with whatever is happening. That is what was said. Uh, so when I alighted from his vehicle and boarded Msamaria Mwema, that is how everything was. That my father had told me, reach to the place where the funeral is, get the whole information as things are. After you have been updated with whatever, you can call me on this number so that I know uh, what everything was. Before I continue from there, I later learned that when we left, around 9 a.m., you see, my father went to his place of business so that he bought the night vehicle. The arrangement was that in the morning I reach Mombasa, and in the morning my father reaches Nairobi. So he had to stay in Kaburengu for some time, awaiting. He had to stay in Kaburengu for some time, awaiting the night bus so that he takes the night bus. But by night I would have been in Nairobi. So in the morning I would be in Mombasa, and in the morning he would be in Nairobi. But an hour or so after we left, my stepmother went AWOL. So people started coming and they would get nobody at the place. This one was against the Luya tradition. She was supposed to be there, receive people and update them for the very little information that we even us had. So me, uh, I went to Mombasa. But before I talk about Mombasa, I've forgotten something very important that I would want to comment. In my life, especially after my parents differed, I had a hard life. I had a hard life. I was somebody who was in the middle whenever they fought, middle figuratively. There were occasions people would come from Mombasa, come and tell my father a lot of things. And my father, since he could not talk to my mother in Mombasa, it's me who he would confront. The same with my mother. Now I was there. And I would talk, I would talk through roundabout, trying to tell them. I even identified the people who, these are people, relatives who are staying in Mombasa, who would leave Mombasa, bring Songi Songi home, come from home, carry Songi Songi to Mombasa. And I would even tell them, why do you comment things about home too? I only failed to mention names because when you are criticizing your parent, you have to use a lot of diplomacy. But I would always tell them, why do you why do you share your stories with other people? There are some people who, without even mentioning them, who come from here, listen to you, sweet quote your story, take it there. Okay, the other side is here's the story, sweet. So why don't you keep all these people? Or when you have to start arguing against each other, why don't you now call those people, involve them? When you are spreading information, when you are spreading, when you are spreading things, you involve them. When it gets bad, it is good to come and clean up. But you see, you have to do it diplomatically because these are your parents. Now, I said, and I said that my brother only speaks two languages. So I said in Kiswahili, and I'll repeat it in Kiswahili, what I said. Sasa ndio vizuri tuone hao watu walikuwa wanabeba fitina kutoka huku hadi huku, watabeba fitina gani? That is what I said. Ni vizuri sasa tuone wale watu wanabebaga fitina kutoka huku mpaka huku, sasa watabeba story gani? My brother spread the information that he said that I said ni vizuri mama yetu amekufa. One time I confronted my brother before my clansmen in Western and asked him to repeat what he said. He cried and people said, no, you are inhuman. I said, no. Okay, assuming that I was happy that our mother died. And I told him, why did he tell people? No, that is one thing I had forgotten. Now I'm back to where I had arrived in Mombasa. I found Uncle James Nguyo, also known as James Mwangi. When the time came for us to decide when and where to bury my mother, Uncle James excused himself and said that he did not want to influence the outcome, but wanted us to make an independent decision in his absence. Up to today, I respect my uncle for that. And he said, for whatever decision we make, he will support us. From the word go, two places were identified. That is where my mother was born and our home. Where my mother was born and our home. What we did not know, that our uncles had a secret weapon. The sister to my father, no, the sister to my mother had died, and her daughter had insisted on burying my senior mother in Langata. This thing annoyed my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. He died while cursing that, and he died while saying that any member of his family, including me, if I died today and insisted on being buried in Mathira, Karatina, I should be buried there. He said anybody from his lineage should be buried there. Of course, I'll be buried in Luandeti, but that is a privilege that I have. It is because my mother's sister was buried in Langata and nobody can trace her grave. That one annoyed my grandfather, and he swore that my senior mother would be the last person to be buried in a cemetery. Let them be buried wherever they be buried. Let them do whatever, but not in a cemetery. If it is a cemetery, let them be buried here. So my uncle James was in Mombasa. He had told us that he was giving us the freedom to decide when and where to bury. But my uncles had a secret weapon. They had decided that should we decide to bury our mother in a cemetery, they would take a case to court. But among us, the children of my late mother, we only identified two places: our home and my mother's, what do you call, my mother's maiden home, which is Karatina. So before we made a final decision, I went to visit Auntie Nyawera. Auntie Nyawera, our mother's eldest sibling. Even as we talk today, she's alive and healthy. So I went and asked her about her opinion before we had a meeting. My senior mother said that 24 hours before 24 hours before my mother died, you know, there is a Kikuyu saying that wagoshoka ni oleaga modo. The second round is the one that kills somebody. So my mother had been sick and everybody suspected that she was going to die, but then she recovered. So her eldest sibling asked her, suppose you had died, would you have been buried according to our father in Karatina, or would you be buried in Luandeti? My mother told her sister that according to Luya tradition, I'll not go into it because it's a long story, but I've already recorded that I've already seen ghosts. She said that she gave conditions such as me having been allocated land, such as then she said, if my sons would not have been allocated land, then I should be buried near my father's grave. So with that, I went back. Uh, I went back to sit with my siblings. Uh, I had already made my mind. Uh, so I decided that we bury her near her father's grave. Her mother later, uh, her her mother later died, and another sister died later, and they were buried uh, next to each other. But this is how, although I insisted, but I had made up my mind that should anything happen, I was to decide that she was to be buried in Karatina. That one was that is something I have to say because of what she had told her sister. Her sister never knew. Auntie Nyawera never knew Luhya tradition. Auntie Nyawera was not aware of the ghosts we used to see when we were kids. And Auntie Nyawera never knew that in Luhya, a divorced wife is buried in her eldest son's uh, shamba. But if she's not divorced, she's buried in her youngest son. So that is what Auntie Nyawera was saying. And I was to insist on that because how can my Auntie Nyawera know about Luya tradition and why should she cheat? For those who know her. So this is how we voted. This is how the 6 kids of mom voted when we were alone. The firstborn, who is Nyakenywa Mwamoyo, who later died, wanted my mother to be buried in Karatina. The second born, me, I wanted to be her buried in Karatina, but withheld my vote until the last person said. The third born, Haoya, was for Karatina and put up a reminder that should our mom be buried in Western Province, she would seek for the funeral procession to stop in Nakuru. Then she prays upon our mother's coffin, and takes the Nyahururu Nyeri Road. She said that If the majority, she said that if the majority of us said that we are to bury our mother in Western, she would go as far as Nakuru, pray on mother's coffee. The procession would stop somewhere. Then she would take the Nyahururu Nyeri road and would go back. She even swore she was calling our father Hikyo Kimtu, Hikyo Kimtu. And she was saying that she would she would never step at home until father has been buried and his grave has grown grass. That one cannot be proven, but what can be proven are Kenyans who are in Germany who have read her book, her castigating our father. So she was for Nyeri, but she was saying that should whatever happen, she would just escort our mother up to a certain point, that is Nakuru. The fourth born was Pius Kareithi. Pius Kareithi wanted our mother to be buried in Western. He kept on saying that mother used to tell him that built, she had built a house and she wanted to be buried next to the house that she had built. One thing I know about my brother, I was not there when my mother was telling him that, but my brother is very good in quoting dead people, and if you ask him, he would tell you that he would tell you that he wants to go to the grave of the dead person and swear by the grave that what is telling the truth. Even me, if I die today, he'll come up with outlandish stories and he'll tell people that if you doubt him, let's go to James's grave and I swear by it. But he accepted Kayaba near Wamunyoro since it was the majority. Now you'll find that this is the fourth born who already we have already hit three. The fifth born, the policeman, when asked to take a vote, he said in Swahili, and I will quote, sijui kwa nini tunabishana vitu vidogo rahisi. The last born, Charity Modoni, said that she would be comfortable with whatever was decided. I then went to Changamwe police station, was given a phone, and called our dad in the number that he had given me in Nairobi. It was 2 to 3 months after I've left service, and Changamwe police did not know that I was no longer a cop. So they were giving me the phone, thinking that this is a serving police officer whose mother has died within this place. I reached Changamwe police station, was given a phone, landline. Those days it was landline. I called my father in the number that he had given me. I told him that we have decided my mother was to be buried in Karatina. It was my father who left Nairobi, and I want lawyers to, to interpret this. It is a bit disappointing when you find a non-lawyer trying to interpret some of these things. Not that I'm stopping anybody, but it means a lot when I call my father, being her eldest son, tell my father or our father that it has been decided mother will be buried in Central Province. Then our father leaves Nairobi, goes to Karatina, tells the people there that the kids have decided that their mother would be buried here. I'm saying that lawyers should comment because according to lawyer tradition, when we decided that, and my father left Nairobi going to Karatina, he met my uncles in Karatina. Okay, I have two uncles. One we were with him in Mombasa, and the other one was in Karatina. But then we have other uncles um, within the family. There is one Kashushe. There are so many. They were there with my uncle. My father announced to them that the kids have decided their mother would be buried here. Now, if we interpret it according to Luya tradition, when my father told my uncles that, and let's say my father requested or even informed my uncles that, no, she's going to be buried in Western Province, in Luya land, it doesn't matter if we were 20 and we had decided. What my father and uncles would have decided would be a veto, would be a veto. But it is him who told my uncles that kids have said, they have rang me and told me that there is going to be buried here. Our uncles were happy because according to Kikuyu tradition, their father had, when my senior mother, Charity Modoni, was thrown away, I can say thrown away, in Langata Cemetery, because nobody can trace her grave even today. Every of my relative who has died, you can go and get her grave and you can say, this is the grave, this is the grave. When my grandfather told his sons that nobody in the family should be buried in a cemetery, they were happy that their father's wish had been fulfilled, especially concerning our mother. What disappointed me most was when Luhia's letter turned to my father. You know, after my mother had been buried, and let's say days went by, we went back to Western. Luhia's went back to, we went, and I have a problem with Luhia. Luhia, if anything has happened, they wait to see if the thing has happened well or bad. If it has happened bad, they start blame, what do we call, blame game. It reached a time when lawyers would even turn to my father and castigate him for allowing the mother of majority of his children to be buried in her maiden homestead. And you know what my father did? Is he passed on the blame to me. Said, but you see, he had lost his mother and he was insisting, whom was I to do that and whatever. That is part of this recording. Part of this recording is my protest that whenever things don't work out well in the family, because they know that I keep quiet. And as I've said, even the pastor would have even attempted, even the pastor have attempted to do what I'm doing. I think most of the blames which would have happened to me later on would not have. People have this wrong connotation that if things don't work out, we have the scapegoat. Another surprising thing is that Hawaya goes around to say that I celebrated both my parents' demise. To my knowledge, very few people actually hate both parents. And I can challenge any of my viewers. Do you know anybody? I think you'll even spend a week who hates both his parents. I'm talking of men and not women. Do you know of any man who hates both his parents with passion? I think you'll spend a week before even you come up with one name. You may find some people, those who have issues with their parents, you'll find that some people have issues with one parent but very close to the other. You'll find even one parent who is not close to his or her children would be blaming the other one for not doing any, for unaona sasa umefanya watoto wananichukia. That thing is normal. But I can tell you, and I'm sure my viewers will agree with me, that it is almost impossible to find a person hating both his parents. I'm saying his, because women don't do that. To an extent, and then when they die, both of them, he celebrates. I know very many people who hate one parent to an extent that when that parent dies, whether it's a mother or a father, he celebrates. But you'll spend more than a week trying to check on a person who hates both parents to an extent that they, when they die, he celebrates. And if you check such a person, most likely you'll find he has a mental case. When it comes to my father, There are dozens of letters in my police personal file written by him. I cannot comment further. I don't know of anybody who has written a letter to an extent of even several letters telling his bosses, his son's bosses, to sack him. And even when I was sacked, many people, it is me who came out and said, no, I was sacked because I shouted Kibaki Oye. But many people went to him and told him, you now you have sacked your son. Imagine people blaming my father for sacking me. I going to tell the people that I was sacked because I shouted that Kibaki is better than Moi. And I still have the letters even as I record this. I know dad had over 8 cases, all except one I single-handedly pushed to the end. I can authoritatively say that some of the cases that dad had, he was very, by the time, uh, I mean, I would say that every case that dad had, that of the 8, he had some, he had some guilt. He had some guilt in that. Let me give a very quick summary of some of the cases that I handled. He had some guilt, and actually he was the guilty one. And I used to go and handle the case until he wins the case. Imagine he is guilty, and I make sure he wins the case. There is a case where he was attacked in somebody's land, and he was beaten and left for dead. I followed that case. Mr. Nyaseda was the provincial CID officer Western. We pursued the case with Nyaseda, and the 2 attackers were convicted. Imagine being attacked inside somebody's land. You leave your land, you go to somebody's land, you get attacked there. I single-handedly pursued the case with Mr. Nyaseda when he was the provincial CID officer in Kakamega. It's a long story, I would not say. There is another case, my father beat up a police officer in Kaburengu. The case went to Kakamega, to Bungom, to Webuye police station. He was a police officer from Webuye. My father beat him up. I had to pursue the OCPD Webuye, Willie Simba, and the case had to go according to my father's side, although he was the guilty one. There is another case, the case where he was attacked by a mob justice, and an AP inspector from Matete went there to save his life. And then he said that it is the AP inspector who had organized the mob justice. I went and saw the AP inspector, talked to him. There are so many cases. And I said there is only one case that I did not pursue. As we speak, my father later died. That case was never even reported in the police OB. My father was leaving his house, going to the trading center, walking footing. That is 2.5 kilometers to go and read a newspaper there. And people waylaid him. They were hiding in the bushes. They waylaid him and left him. My father's mental position never recovered to his death. As I was pursuing that, Haoya said that I was happy to hear that my father had been attacked. And I decided that in that particular case, I will not pursue it. And I never pursued it, and it has never been reported to. And you find this is a case where he was going to the trading center to read the day's newspaper, and he was waylaid. He never went to somebody's shamba to be attacked there. He never falsely accused an AP inspector at This is a situation where he was just walking and he was attacked. So that is what happened. It is for that reason that my father died a mental case, because he was attacked by young men, And because Haoya, who had said, who had any, ask any Kenyan, ask any African in Germany about Haoya's book. She had castigated. She's the person who is now going around saying that our father, I'm against our father. She has written a book about our father. Ask any Kenyan in Germany. Ask any African in Germany. German people are racist of the highest point. They tell people, you see, this is how African fathers treat their children. She has written a book. She has gained money for castigating her father. And here she's anyway. All that is well documented. And I will repeat, all that is well documented. The person who had said when my mother was dead that she would never visit home, she would only say visit home when my father's grave had grass. That one is not documented, but her book is quoted there. And ask any African in German, say that it was unfair for her, even if whatever she wrote about her father, which was false, but even if it was true, even if it was true, she was not supposed to write that about my father. I wanted to use this year's death anniversary of my mother to explain what many people did not know. Some people may come out and say that I've spilled the beans of the family, whatever, whatever. But I've also seen that if in the past I would have started spilling the beans earlier, we would not have reached this stage. Have a nice time. Mom, rest in peace until we meet in the heavenly abode. Amen.